said, the flowers today are in memory of Madeline McDowell. I had the great pleasure of watching her grow up as a little girl in our Sunday school apartment and turn into a beautiful young lady. And she made her transition on March 3rd of 2016. A lot of people say that's the anniversary of her death, but at the same time, it can be looked on as the birthday, her first birthday in her next existence. And just as sure as we knew her and exchanged love with her in this one, that time will come as well. Before I begin this week's lesson, I have to clarify something from last week. Some people heard, or they thought they heard, that I said, God does not exist. Now, think of the ramifications if that were to hit the front page of the Star. It would be all over. But actually, I did say that. And whether I was speaking too fast or I was slurring my words, which I have a tendency to do sometimes, I did say that God does not exist, but it has to be taken in context with what I said before and what I said afterwards. The God I was talking about was the historical, religious God that's been handed down from generation to generation to generation, the characteristics and the personality of the God up there on the throne. That God was portrayed as vindictive, jealous, revengeful, and also deeply ashamed of us as human beings because we were born sinful by nature. Now, when I talked about that God, that historical God, I said that God does not exist. And I stand by that today. I honestly believe that there is not an old man with long white hair sitting on a throne looking down waiting to punish us. And if we don't suffer enough in this lifetime and gain salvation, that God will send us to hell. That God does not exist are my thoughts. The God that does exist is an ever-present spirit and energy, the essence of our being, the essence of all that exists, that is loving, that is compassionate, that is benevolent, and that is all embracing. It's a loving God versus the Old Testament God, which was more of a standoff God, punishing us as unruly children. Now, also talks about the Ten Commandments. For those of you who weren't here, in the middle of them, I think around 5 or 6 or so, I forgot what the rest were. And that was kind of funny, but when I asked the audience, 500 people, which ones am I missing, everybody was scratching their heads. The Ten Commandments are wonderful, beautiful direction for life. And I didn't dwell on the Fourth Amendment because I thought that needed more time. And the Fourth Amendment is take one day a week to step back and rest and relax. Now, what that means is not just taking a day away from our daily labors, but it also means freeing ourselves from any problems or challenges that we might be worried about, freeing ourselves from any anguish we might be carrying forth. It's a time of setting everything aside and just allowing ourselves to be at ease and just experience the beauty of the earth and the beauty of the people. Oftentimes, life can be difficult. We all know that. There's problems and there's challenges, there's setbacks, there's losses. And sometimes we get caught up in those that the stress becomes the governing factor of our lives. Scientific research has shown that when we're under a great deal of stress, the very DNA in our body begins to tighten up, almost like taking a rope and twisting it. The DNA in our body tightens up. It affects us, it weakens us, both mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So we need that one day where we can just step back and do nothing at all. It doesn't have to be Sunday. It can be any day of the week that you choose. But it is for your benefit, it is for your strength, it is for your inspiration to move forward into the coming week and be as productive as you possibly can. Life presents us at times with situations and circumstances that we're not happy with. But we are wired, we are programmed, so to speak. We have the capacity to manage and rise above and move beyond anything that destroys our desire for life or that plagues our sense of well-being. We have that within us. But the problem is sometimes we forget that. We forget our potential. And so when we run into difficult times, we get caught up in this circular track of a rut. And we keep going around and around. We accept life as being lifeless. And we don't know how to get out of it. And there's a man who was having a dream, and in the dream he is standing before a long hallway. And on each side of the hallway there were paintings, abstract paintings. And the guide next to him said, these paintings represent different times in your life. And as they walked down the hall, the paintings at the beginning were very vibrant, full of brilliant and beautiful colors. The excitement almost jumped off the canvas. But then as he continued on, he noticed the paintings became a little bit more drab, a little bit more lifeless, and the colors were dull and the brushstrokes were very heavy. When he got to one particular painting that disturbed him, he asked what that represented. And the guide said, well, that painting represents the time that you dropped out of college. Your father got very angry with you. You disappointed a lot of people. As a result of that, you took on this guilt, you took on this shame, you took on this feeling of being unworthy that you never really let go of. They continued to walk a little further, and here's another painting that was very morose, it was very gloomy. And the fellow asked what this painting meant, and he said, well, that's the time when your father died. It was very unfortunate because you had issues that you hadn't resolved. And then as he continued down the hallway, looking at these paintings, it became more and more lifeless. And there was one about his bout with alcoholism. And there was another painting that represented the time he got fired from his job. Then there was a divorce. And pretty soon, as he neared the end of the hallway, all the paintings just became lifeless and sad. And it's almost as if there was no effort at all put into the brushstrokes or in choosing the colors. Well, the man realized that he had been in that circular rut, going around and around for a long, long time. He hadn't experienced happiness. He didn't have any zest for life. He had no goals to look forward to. And so he asked the guide, is there any way that I can go back and redo my life? And the guide said, no. Yesterday is gone forever. No amount of pleading, no amount of prayer, no amount of tears, no amount of sadness can change a single brushstroke. But then he pointed to a canvas on the wall that was empty. There wasn't a mark on it. He says, but this is your life going forward. You have a full palette of colors just like everybody else. You can paint on this canvas whatever you choose. So today, you choose how you want your life to be. And then you choose going forward how you want your life to be pictured on these various canvases. And once again, I tell you this because, as I said earlier, sometimes we find ourselves in situations that take us down so low, we don't think that we'll ever be able to get back up. We don't think that we're ever going to be able to succeed at all those things we wanted to succeed at. We don't think that we're going to find those perfect relationships that we've been searching for all of our lives. And as a result, we just accept life for much, much less than it is. The point is, life is basically simple. When we have what we want, we're happy. When we're in the process of getting what we want, we're happy. When we don't have what we want, or we have something in our life that we don't want, we're unhappy. It's as simple as that. Now, we have been given attributes, spiritual attributes, to provide for our needs and our desires, our deep needs and desires on a spiritual level. And the process for doing that is also very simple. First and foremost, we have to realize and truly believe in our potential. We have the potential to live a life, a good life, that is not only happiness, but that is comfortable and peaceful during the sad times. We have the potential to thrive in life, and we don't have to be defeated. The second thing is to ask yourself, what exactly is it that I want? One of the biggest problems in coming to, in talking to people about why they're not happy, I'll say, well, what's missing from your life? What do you want? And they have to stop and think about it. He said, I don't know. It just seems like something's missing, and I can't seem to find the happiness that I know is out there. So the second thing is to ask yourself what exactly it is that you want, and the third thing is then to set your intention. And this is very, very important. The mind has what is called the reticular activating system, and you don't have to remember that word, but it's the function of the mind that directs us on what to focus on. Because we're bombarded by thousands and thousands of different impressions every single day, just going through life. We can't keep track of all of it. We can't remember all of it. We can't react to all of it. So the reticular activating system directs us to pay attention to that which is foremost on our mind. If we set our intention that we want something to manifest in our lives, the reticular activating system will take that. It'll begin to direct you to opportunities that you'd never see otherwise. It'll direct your actions and your thoughts and your feelings to align with what it is you set your intention on. The fourth one is belief in ourselves. We have to have confidence. Now, most of us in here have failed from time to time. We fall short of victory. We have created problems and mistakes for other people. But that has no bearing on the potential that we have. Just as a baby has potential to eventually become an upright walking person that can articulate in a wonderful fashion, we have that same potential no matter what age we are. And then the last is to persevere. You know, the road to what we want isn't always an easy one. There are stumbles and there are falls. But persevere and know that if your intention is in line with your thoughts and your feelings and your actions, you're going to arrive at a destination that is what you want. Many of you in here have heard of Sylvester Stallone. His story for me is probably one of the most inspirational I've ever heard. From a very young boy, he wanted to become an actor for the primary purpose of inspiring people. But when he was born, and there was trouble during the delivery, and the forceps were put around his head to help him enter this world, created a paralysis of his lower left jaw. So he kind of slurred his speech, and also his jaw kind of hung in an awkward way. Now here's a young boy from Hell's Kitchen that probably was being teased by other kids because of the way he was, or the way he talked, but he wanted to become an actor. That was his intention. So when he became a young man, he left his job, he had very little savings, and he embarked on the path to become an actor. Well, it wasn't long until he was completely broke. His wife was extremely irritated. He had hawked her jewelry just to buy food and pay the heat bill, and she kept telling him day after day after day, you know, you got to go out and get a job, you got to earn money. But that was contradictory to his intention. And he knew if he went back into the job market, he'd probably get hooked, and he'd probably spend his entire life only dreaming about what he wanted to become and never really achieving that. It got to the point where he couldn't afford to feed his dog. So he took his dog, his best friend, a dog that he loved, went down to a liquor store down the block from where he lived, and stood outside the liquor store and tried to sell his dog for $50. There's no takers. Finally, some guy came along and offered him $25, which allowed him to get by for a couple more days. Well, not being able to get into the acting business after visiting hundreds of different agents, all who thought that he was a waste of time, that he couldn't do it, he decided to become a screenwriter. So he started writing short movies and short plays. Some he'd be able to sell for $25, some he'd be able to sell for $50, but he still was going nowhere. By all practical purposes, he should have given up at that point and realized it just wasn't in the cards for him. But then one night, he was watching the fights on TV. Muhammad Ali was fighting a guy named Chuck Wepner, I believe his name was, kind of a nobody in the boxing world. And Muhammad Ali was definitely in charge of what was happening in the ring. He was giving him a walloping. But what impressed Sylvester Stallone was that Wepner didn't give up. He just kept going and going and going, and went the entire 12 rounds, I believe it was. Well, with that, he got the idea of Rocky. And he sat down and he wrote for 20 hours, he said, and when he was done, he had the Rocky script. He was so on fire with this, and that he couldn't wait to get out and see the movie producers and sell the script. So he went from movie producer to movie producer to movie producer, being rejected all along the way. Some said it was sappy, and something it would never make it to the theaters. It wouldn't be interesting to the movie audience. But then finally he ran across a guy, a movie producer that could see the value in the script, and he offered him $125,000. Now here's a guy that was broke, barely had enough money to feed himself, and here's someone saying $125,000 for the script. And then Sylvester Stallone dropped the other shoe. He said, that's great, I love it, I'll take it, but I have to play Rocky. And the guy laughed. He said, you're nobody. I'm not going to bet my money on you. I'll give you $125,000 for the script. That's with you out of it. He passed. The guy says, I'll give you $250,000 for the script. Sylvester Stallone said, I play Rocky. The guy said, no. He passed. The guy finally went to $325,000. Now think about this, $325,000 to someone that's broke, and Sylvester Stallone still passed on selling the script because he couldn't play Rocky. I mean, that dumbfounds me how somebody could do that. I'm sure he didn't tell his wife about it. Or so finally, this movie producer says, okay, you can play Rocky, but I'm not going to gamble my money on you. I'll give you $35,000 and you can have the starring role. So Sylvester Stallone got his $35,000. He got to play Rocky. The first thing he did with the money, he went right back to the liquor store and he stood there for 3 days waiting for the guy who bought his dog to come by. And when he did, he said, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I'm the one that sold you your dog. I sold you my dog for $25. I am willing to give you $100 for it. And the guy said, no, I've grown to love this dog. He said, I'll give you $200 for it. No. $500? No. $1,000? No. So then all of a sudden it clicked on him. He said, hey, how do you like a part in the movie? And the guy said, well, how much do I get paid? And he said, well, you don't get paid anything, but I will give you $15,000 for my dog. You get a part in the movie, and the dog gets a part in the movie. So the guy did it. Now, $15,000 for a dog that he had sold for $25 less than a month ago. He just doesn't seem to be tracking this guy. He can't take no for an answer. You know, he turns down $325,000 because he wants to be Rocky, and then he pays $15,000 for a dog he sold for $25. Well, they're both in the movie, and the movie cost $1 million to make. It went on to earn $200 million at the box office, and his share was like 20% or something. So he got $40 million. Now, I tell you this story because he followed the same principles that I was talking about. First of all, he knew that he had the potential to play the part of Rocky and to get into the movie somehow in some way. He set his intention on exactly that, on becoming a movie star that could inspire people. He believed in himself. He didn't quit when everything told him to quit. He persevered over hardships and problems and challenges. And he made sure that everything he said, everything he did, every thought that he had aligned with his intention. Now, that's the important part. We can set our intention that I want this to be in my life. I want to be happier. I want to be more at peace. I want to have less stress or whatever. But if our words and our thoughts and our actions don't align with that particular goal, it's all for naught. It's not going to happen. We have to dedicate ourselves to our intention 100%. It's pledging our allegiance to that. And when we do that, we find ourselves slowly moving towards that what we want. And sometimes you might think I want to be president of the company. We might think that I want to have $1 million. You might want to think about this or about that. But we actually want is an emotional experience. We want what that out there can bring us and give us that feeling in here. So sometimes we embark upon a goal only to find out that we end up moving someplace else, and the goal that we had really intended to aspire to doesn't become quite as important, but something else does, and it gives us even a greater feeling of what we want inside. Now, once again, life is very simple. When we have what we want, we're happy. When we're in the process of getting what we want, we're happy. When we don't have what we want, we're not happy, or if we have something in our life that we do not want, we are not happy. But we have been given the tools, we've been given the capacity, the spiritual attributes to live life in a way where those desires within us can be fulfilled. A desire that cannot be fulfilled is like having an itch that can't be scratched. It'd be tormenting, and God doesn't do that to us. Carnegie said, the recognition of a desire within our minds is an indication that the gratification of that desire is within the constitution of that which holds it. And we can see that all through nature. Every single animal, every single human being has within them what they need to live a comfortable and fulfilling life, as long as it's not interfered with primarily humankind. So as we move into meditation, think a little bit about your life. Do you know what you want? Are you willing to set your intention on moving towards that? Can you believe in yourself to the point where it will be, I will not fail, I will get this, or I will get something better? Do you have the perseverance to be able to stand up after getting knocked down, dusting yourself off and continuing on? And can you discipline yourself to make sure that your words, your thoughts, and your actions align perfectly with what you're intending to accomplish? We'll now move into meditation.